Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes so sweet and sexy. Have fun, enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions of lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. Is a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Sack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish and Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Meshegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes sweet and sassy. And not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Hello, my friends, and happy Friday. Today is Friday, November 29th, 2024, and a belated happy Thanksgiving to all of you. And I hope that you had a wonderful day and you were able to celebrate with your families. And if you were alone, well, welcome, because we're here to keep you company today. I am so grateful for each and every one of you, and I give thanks, as always, for all of you who want to come and watch me and share your days with me. Sometimes we're here for 8 hours at a time together, and there ain't no place I'd rather be. Wow. Do we have a great show for you today? Guys, we picked up the Brian Camp case late, thanks to Elizabeth, my viewer, who sent me information about this. She emailed me, and that's why I love when you guys email me. She emailed me this case, and she said, you have to take a look at this case. This kid, Brian Camp, is being railroaded. It's a travesty. It's a shonda. It's a mishigas. And nobody is covering it. And we couldn't find any coverage. So the one day that we were covering the Aidan Carney case, and which was a fail because they didn't broadcast any of that for us to see either. I said, you guys, I have this case. It's the Brian Camp case. It's in Hampshire County. All of my Massachusetts viewers, which, by the way, if you're here from Massachusetts or you have ties to Massachusetts and you now live somewhere else, yeah, I just set a live for 4 p.m. We're going to discuss that. So let's not try and railroad the chat into a different topic. So I have a Karen Reed stream coming up at 4. I have everything ready on that. Thank you. We're going to pivot at 4 p.m. If you are from Massachusetts or have ties to Massachusetts, like you used to live in Massachusetts, put a 1 in the chat. Let's see how many people here are from Massachusetts. It was crazy. Crazy, Nicola. How little there was on this. Brian Camp didn't get the eyeballs he needed. No. And the streams were shadow banned. The only other YouTuber I found covering this is Kathy from Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo. And so Kathy and I met through this case and we became friends. So during that same stream where we were covering Aidan's hearing, that didn't happen, I said, a viewer brought this to my attention. I found the opening statements like on an unlisted link through Court TV. And I said, let's just start playing it. We'll do a teaser and see if you guys were interested in it. And it was overwhelming. We sat and we watched both opening statements. Then the next day we did a show and we watched the 911 call, the body cam footage, and the interrogation video of Brian Camp. And then the next day, finally, they released some, I don't even know if it was his full testimony, Brian Camp's testimony. And then we wound up suffering through the Court TV coverage of the closing arguments. So we only watched them in real time, but it wasn't live streamed on Court TV's YouTube. So we had to sit through all the commercials, and who knows if they kept interrupting it. It was a mess. And then, thank God, praise be, we saw the verdict together. and we were on the edges of our seat, and we collectively have adopted Brian Camp as our son. And when we heard those words, not guilty, I think we were all crying. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. And one of our viewers, Bo, went to Hampshire County. She sat in Hampshire Superior Court in Northampton. She had a long conversation with Brian. She was like, I don't know if she was like trying to distract him, waiting for the verdict, because unless you have been on trial as a defendant, you have no idea what it's like. Even as an attorney, it is so anxiety inducing waiting for a verdict that I can't even imagine what it's like as a defendant. And Bo went, and she was there. And for those of you who don't know, Brian Camp was on trial for killing the home invader that tried to kill him. And for some reason, Massachusetts didn't really want you to know about it. But I have our hero today and my new friend, Tom Kokonowski, the defense attorney for Brian Camp, to come in and answer all of your questions and all of the burning things that we wanted to know. Just give me the thumbs up, Tom, whenever you're ready. When your camera ready. And here's Tom Kokonowski.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
I also have my cat, George Clooney, with me, who either is going to meow through the entire thing or he's going to have some camera time. So you tell me what you want because I can't
George
control this guy.
Clooney. You can
Yes.
do whatever you want. If George Clooney needs to hang out, he should at least face the camera.
During COVID, he became famous in every courtroom across the Commonwealth because we were practicing law through COVID, and George would come up and sit here. And by the end, judges and court officers and prosecutors during breaks were asking where George is. And George is right there.
We love George Clooney.
That's my
Everybody
cat.
loves George Clooney. That's awesome. Hi, George. All right. Well, I feel like we know you. I mean, I know you from a little bit talking in the green room, but we feel like we know you. We called you our Don Draper Mad Men meets Drew Carey. You were our new like sartorial splendor lawyer. We don't get a lot of that. You know, we don't get a lot of attorneys who dress as well as you did, and we were very impressed not only with your demeanor but the fact that you got our boy Brian Camp an acquittal. So, random fun fact, viewers, Tom and I just realized that we both went to the same college at the same time for 1 year. We were both freshmen at Trinity College in Hartford at the same time, and we even lived in the same dorm. Like, how weird is that?
That's nuts.
That's crazy. Like, talk about a small world.
Absolutely crazy. You bailed at the right time. I stayed and suffered.
I was a hippie. Like, it wasn't for me. It was a lot of, no shade to any kid who has a trust fund, but everyone had a trust fund. Every other student, there was only 1,200 students. They all came out of boarding school. It was like Choate opened the doors to a bunch of kids who had never seen a beer, and they were drunk all the time. And if you didn't go to a fraternity party, there was nothing to do because it was not in the best neighborhood. There was that one bar down the hill.
College View Cafe. That's where I worked.
That's it. That one bar. And if
that's where I fit in mostly.
Yeah, it was kind of, and I was a hippie, and I was like, there's no hippies here. Everybody here, like, their families own Fortune 500 companies. And so I hightailed it out of there to Boulder, but I don't know that we don't remember each other, but it's so funny because we were talking and I said, I lived in this dorm. And you're like, well, I lived in this dorm too.
Jones.
And I think I was on the second floor and you were on the first floor. And like, there's no such thing as coincidence. I firmly believe that. Thank you, Brian Camp, for bringing us back together.
Yeah, it was, obviously I wasn't watching any of this stuff while the case was going on because God forbid somebody describes me as Drew Carey and I can't concentrate for the rest of the trial.
It's a compliment, though. You didn't take that as an insult or anything, did you?
No, especially because prior to that was Mad Men and Bespoke and all that stuff. That's the only thing that I spend money on are my suits. So thank you for that compliment.
Well, you could tell a cheap fabric a mile away, Tom. I mean, I can.
Yeah, I like.
And the tailoring was impeccable. So.
Well, you got to be careful. Once they're done, man, if you have one cupcake too many, you don't need to step on the scale. I know exactly when it is that I got to stop it.
Tell us about your background.
My background is one of the issues that I had going to the college that we're talking about is because there was so much money. and I was blessed. I was blessed to be able to go there now. But when I was there, man, holy mackerel, did I feel like I didn't fit, because I came from a background that included foster care. I spent most of my childhood in foster care, and luckily, my oldest brother snatched me out of seventh grade and taught me how to study and taught me how to exercise, and I wound up becoming somebody who I didn't think I ever could be. One of my biggest fears, and I know talking to other human beings, is that I'm not good enough, and therefore I'm afraid of what people think of me. And I worry about that all the time. And my whole childhood, that's the way that I thought and can still think.
Well, we love you. If that's any consolation, there's almost 1,200 people here that love you. So,
well, I appreciate, and I'll tell you, my brother taught me how to study. He was an English teacher. I lived with he and his wife. His wife let me move in with them. She was an English teacher. I was just blessed to be able to live with them after what I had gone through, and they taught me a lot. And wound up going to a prep school myself for a postgraduate year. I had problems there because there was so much money. And I'm coming from, and look it up if you want, if you're talking about Massachusetts. I come from Chicopee, Massachusetts, former home of the world's largest kielbasa. That was that's what Chicopee's about. Yeah, you're either Polish or you're French from Chicopee. And I got into the school, and the school got me into Trinity, and there's clearly in my life, there's been a power greater than myself that's been looking over me, which I refused to believe in at first because of my anger, but I now know has been there the whole time. So I'm lucky.
well, I mean, you're our hero and the camp's hero. And for you guys in the chat, I know so many of you were asking about an Amazon wish list for the girls, which I have pinned to the chat. It's also in the video description. They've also started a GoFundMe for the family, Brian and Brooke and the girls, so that they can try and rebuild their lives, because then you went to law school, I imagine, after Trinity.
And so went to Trinity. My two older brothers before me went to law school as well at night. All of us went to law school at night, working full time during the day. When I was 12, my oldest brother, Paul, who was 22 years older than me, took care of me for a while after my parents had passed away. And he was a lawyer, and he took me to Lee District Court, which doesn't exist anymore, in the Berkshires. And I watched him, and he was a very large personality. I watched him try a case, and I just remember saying, that's what I want to do right there. And so that was the goal that I set. And I was lucky to, get to where I was. I knew that I wanted to try cases. I worked in the district attorney's office at night. It takes 4 years at law school to go at night.
Mm-hmm.
So for 3 years, I worked as a victim witness advocate. And then for a solid year, I got to be what's called a 303, which is a student prosecutor. So I actually tried cases before I graduated from law school.
I did that too. University of Denver had that student law office. That was a great experience.
I lost my first 10 trials, which is why you do it.
Yeah.
There's no liability. But I remember the first one. I remember the first win that I had. Two things. I figured out finally out of trial and error, because I'm more of a trial and error guy than a book guy. I pay people to be my book people. I remember the feeling of winning, but then I remembered the fact that I was required to ask that guy go to jail. And I quit shortly thereafter because I am not wired that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be perfectly honest, for that, my background that I just told you about, let's just say I did not live a particularly spiritual life for a significant period of time. And there, but for the grace of God, go I for a lot of stuff.
He must tell us if he went to Chicopee High or Comp, says my views.
So I left Chicopee for middle school, where I went to East Long Meadow, a place called Birchland Park Junior High School. And then I went to Westfield High School. And then I post-grad at Williston Northampton School, and then Trinity. And then Western New England, now university. It was Western New England College Law School back then, nighttime, like my two brothers before me.
It's a great story. I feel like people who come from adversity are like, they get it,
It's the most important thing in my trial work.
Yeah.
Because I can identify with pretty much everybody on that jury.
I also feel like, yeah, right, exactly. You can put yourself in their shoes without telling them to put themselves in the defendant's shoes, because you're not allowed to do that in your closing. But I find that a lot of trial lawyers are frustrated actors, like myself.
Yes.
I find that because I decided to go to law school because I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid, and I was like, wait, I can go to law school and not get rejected, and I can write my own script, and I'll have a jury that has to listen to me. There's my audience. And then I also get to use my power of persuasion, and I don't have to go through the anxiety of being rejected in auditions and all that stuff. So for me, that's what it was. But
Interesting. It's very interesting. Sort of your own self-contained Hollywood.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
Although I've been rejected by a couple of juries.
Well, you know what I mean. They can't tell you that you didn't get the part. They can't tell you didn't get the part.
Yeah, you always have the part.
Right.
You always have the part, yes.
You're not, that's what I mean. Writing your own script, you get your own thing. So a lot of people had the misconception during the trial that you're a public defender for Brian, and you pointed out to me that that's not the case. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's not the case. I got a call 2 years ago. Well, so we're coming up on the anniversary of this whole thing pretty quickly. And I got the call from his mother and then from him about what was going on, and met with them and talked about price. And I didn't know these guys, and it's a big case, and it's a lot of work, and expert witnesses and all that kind of stuff. And as great a case as it is for a defense lawyer, and then as it turns out, as great a client as Brian was and is, I was sure that I wasn't going to get the call back. And I actually talked to them about, there are very good court-appointed attorneys in Hampshire County, very good. So if that's the route that you want to go, don't be too worried about it. And got another call, and this guy just works his rear end off, man. This guy works and works and works. And it just, and he was 22 when I met him.
Wow.
I was a mess when I was 22 years old. He's 22. He's got kids, and now he's got this, and he almost got killed. And he is conducting business with me, and I'm like, okay, if it happens, it happens, and it happened because he made it happen.
You mean his acquittal, or his being able to hire you by working 3 jobs?
His ability to hire me with his mom. His mom helped, I think, in the initial stages, but he just is an amazing guy from every aspect of his life. And I now know it's, from both of his parents, but he was really close to his dad, who taught him a lot of, about hard work and stuff. So he's a really great guy in all aspects of life, in my opinion.
And he lost his dad.
Lost his dad, I think, in 2018 or 2019, which was a very big loss for him.
That's tragic.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was able to, I mean, he looks like such a baby to me because I have kids that are older than he is. And he was one of the best witnesses that I have ever seen testify on their own behalf. What was the decision like to put him on the stand? And I don't know how much you prep. I'm sure that you prepped him. Either it was your prep that made him this amazing witness, or which, yes, I could tell the prep was incredible. Like, he was ready for every question that came his way, never lost his cool. He never got snarky. He never, you know, how a lot of clients can fight back. And it's always a risk to put your client on the stand. What was that decision like for you? What was the prep like for you? And what made you decide, yeah, he's got to get up there?
Well, as you know, it is not my decision ultimately. I lay out all of the reasons why he should, and all the reasons what can happen when you don't. And he made that decision based on everything that we talked about. And as much as we love each other as lawyer and client, in the last couple of days of prep, uh, there was almost a fist fight in my office.
Really?
Because it has to get that intense. You have a prosecutor like ADA Gagne, who is no joke. He is very, very, very skilled, very, very smart, has tons of experience, and that's not somebody you can not prepare for.
Right. So a lot of the viewers may not know, but when you're prepping your client, especially to get on the stand, you have to interrogate them the way that you know that the prosecutor is going to. And it can get ugly and it can get mean and it can get nasty, but they have to be prepared for that. So I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, because a lot of the viewers might not know that. It's like a role-playing thing, right? And you have to try and push their buttons to make sure that they're going to be able to handle the worst of the worst if it happens.
Give them, I think one of my better attributes is cross-examination. And what I mean is I cross-examined him brutally. And, if the first time you're getting cross-examined that way is on the stand, you're in trouble.
Right.
You got to know what it feels like. And Brian and I went at it pretty good.
Whatever you did was masterful, because he was, like I said, we watched a lot of trials on this channel, and he was, I'm going to say he was the best witness I've ever seen on his own behalf.
Well, I will let him know that, because I may have had some part in it, but he's the guy who got up there.
And when you're telling the truth
There
doesn't change.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
We were all so outraged that this case was even prosecuted in the first place. And I know you can't talk about any conversations that you've had with your client, but you can give us your views on why you think. A lot of us thought it was political. A lot of us thought it was Massachusetts. We've seen the Karen Reed monstrosity of a case and some other cases and things that have gone on there. And, what are your thoughts on why? I mean, it took them 6 months to indict him, right?
It did.
Any thoughts that you feel comfortable sharing with us?
Coming into it, that really is not something that I can't focus on. That the why. Right. Here we are. Is there a motion to dismiss? Is there, are there things that I can do to make this go away? And my evaluation of it was that there was not. Sifting through everything and actually trying the case and talking about the 20-minute or 19-minute response, that I keep coming back to that as a reason, because otherwise I'm not quite sure. Also, with regard to back to what we were talking about where we went to school, where we were comfortable, the gentleman on court TV and the way that the Commonwealth presented the case to the jury was academic. It was like there's this equation. I remember the guy, because I finally watched coverage when it was done. Well, back in law school, we were taught this, and this guy would have been. We're not in law school.
No,
we're not. This is not Brian Camp when he is attacked in his bed is not in law school. He's not aware of these rules that he's supposed to follow. He's about to die.
Right.
He's got to be making these decisions. And the fact that it took that long for responders to respond kept Brian in that situation without knowing when they were going to be there. Like, okay, when are they going to be here? And then the dispatcher, in my opinion, sends him back in
Yes.
when he has absolutely no desire to go near this guy, because he believes that he is still a threat. And I believe, in my opinion, that he was a threat when he was trying to get back up. And I don't know. It just feels like maybe that's the reason that they brought it, because there was something very wrong with the way that the response happened. You know, the first trooper to arrive testified. I think when Attorney Gagney was asking him a question, you know, how long did it take you to get there? And he said it seemed like it was taking longer than it should, which I found very interesting, very honest. And it is what happened. It took longer than it should. He's trying to get there. And again, I said to the jury, this is not an attack against any one particular trooper or the dispatcher or anybody in the ambulance. This is an attack against the system that created this situation where this guy is by himself with two little kids and an attacker in his house for 20 minutes.
Right. What's he supposed to do? He's father of the year, as far as I'm concerned. Father of the century. He protected those girls from a lifetime of therapy and trauma. And they slept through the whole thing, the girls?
Don't think so.
Oh, but so they heard some stuff. But when the prosecutor was insinuating that he should have gone upstairs, picked up the two girls and brought them outside while Johnathan Letendre is lying in the kitchen floor, so to expose the girls to all of that carnage. There was blood everywhere. There was, a guy threatening to kill Brian and run them outside and find the car keys and drive them away. I was outraged by that. He did what a good father would do, and he kept them from seeing that. And I don't think anybody realizes how amazing that was for him to do that and to be able to think that way in the moment.
Again, he is in this situation, and I pointed out the word circumstances from the jury instruction that the jury was about to hear, that a reasonable person in the same circumstances as the defendant, and that the defendant under all of the circumstances did or didn't do certain things. I mean, he, in my opinion, made the right decision the entire way.
Yeah.
And I actually said, there's going to be people who question why, when you ran downstairs, you didn't take the kids. And I don't have children, so I knew what the answer was. But and he said, first of all, the door was closed. This guy was coming after me, and he used himself as bait to get downstairs away from the kids. And then I'm thinking, imagine, okay, so I'm going to go into this room with two little girls who are like squirming, and you got one under each arm. And I mean, what are you going to do? Bring them out, expose them? It just is. He made the best decision under, quote unquote, the circumstances, for sure. Because guess what? They're having Christmas this year with their father and their mom.
I know.
And that has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with what Brian Camp did. When they showed the video of the trooper bringing the girls down, that was, in my opinion, an attempt for the Commonwealth to make it look like the troopers had rescued these two little girls, because the video was of them bringing them downstairs. The reality is, and I asked the trooper, you were able to bring those girls downstairs because the threat was no longer there. Yeah.
Right.
It was Brian Camp who allowed those troopers to bring those little girls downstairs, in my opinion.
So much, so much. What do you think the response time? 19 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. What was it weather related? Was it we had to get MSP in here, and Chesterfield is a very remote place that has a small population of something like 1,100 people. It's kind of like Trinity College. 1,100 people that live in Chesterfield. What do you think was the cause of is that a typical response time for people who live in Chesterfield?
Well, so I got to cross-examine the dispatcher.
Which we didn't get to hear, by the way.
Right. And, there's a different plan for the hill towns. And when you call 911 from your cell phone in the hill towns, apparently it usually goes to the state police first. Chesterfield Police Department is 2 miles down the street from Brian Camp's house. It's a part-time police department. So I was asking, okay, well, so let's just assume that they're not working, because they weren't. Somebody in the state police has to have like the chief's phone number,
Right.
or all of the officers. I think there are 3 or 4 officers in Chesterfield.
Aren't they on call?
Somebody's right. Somebody's got to have somebody's number there. And I learned through my cross-examination that the system is, well, we text message somebody through our computer.
Oh.
And I said, okay, well, did you do that? Yes. To whom? I don't know. Did they get it? I don't know. Did anybody respond? I don't know. And so,
fail. I'll say it. Big fail on their.
well,
Was
so,
there a blizzard happening?
no.
Oh, okay.
No, it was cold.
Yeah.
But the body cams, the cruisers show that the roads were clear.
So they had somebody coming from the Massachusetts State Police, which we are very familiar with from the Karen Reed case. But the weird thing in the Karen Reed case, you and I were talking a little bit about Karen Reed before this, was that, every cop in Canton or MSP who was not on duty that night just voluntarily came over to the Boston police officer's house at 34 Fairview to insert themselves into the investigation, which is the complete opposite of what happened here. Like, these part-time officers didn't even respond. So
I don't know that they knew. That's the whole thing. Like, I don't know that they knew.
unexplainable.
So, I believe the trooper who showed up first started in West Springfield or something, which is a distance away. It's the hill towns, but you got a breaking and entering with firearms and weapons, and
and a guy who's trying to kill the entire family. This Johnathan Letendre, and I can't speak to the truth or veracity of this, and I don't know if you can either, but a lot of people send me emails saying that there are a lot of Letendres that with the same last name that are either in law enforcement in the area or in government, that this is a name that is connected somehow. Maybe that's why they press charges. I can't speak to the truth or veracity of that. And I got a lot of emails. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah. This guy, Letendre, clearly unhinged, shows up to the house with handcuffs in his pocket, a decorative knife in his jacket, comes in the house, takes his shoes off before he goes up the stairs, right?
That's my opinion.
Okay. You said that, I think, in closing. Put his jacket over the couch. How is it that these handcuffs are not found until the autopsy in his pocket? Is that accurate? Because listen, the only testimony that was televised were opening statements, Brian's testimony, closing arguments in part, because they were interrupted by commercials, and we don't know if they stopped and let us watch the whole thing.
Yes, a tech found handcuffs at the autopsy.
At the autopsy. So, in your experience as a criminal defense attorney, when there's a body, do they not look in the pockets of the person to try and find an identification, wallet, something? Nobody even looked.
Usually they do. I'm not quite clear as to what happened in this situation. All I know is that As with regard to the knife, I don't know if you guys know that
Tell
that
us.
Brooke's friend found them the next day.
Right. She went over to the house with Brooke's dad, I guess, to get some stuff for the kids and the family and picked up this jacket and a knife fell out.
Saw the jacket, knew it was whose it was because she worked at the same place.
Oh, so
Pick,
they all worked at the Dunkin' Donuts.
yeah, picked it up and out fell the decorative knife.
And how would you describe have you seen the decorative knife? How would you describe it? Did it have a blade?
As
Was it
I
sharp?
as I told the jury in my closing argument, the only difference between being stabbed with the decorative knife and a non-decorative knife is that the pretty pictures of birds on the knife would have your blood on them.
I mean, I'm sure you can't speculate as to what he intended to do, but when I heard that they had just switched bedrooms with the girls the week before, and that's the room that he went for, I felt a chill.
Hmm. You and me both.
Were the girls the intended target? Had he ever been to that house before when Brooke and he dated? And did they date for like two times, or like, seemed to me that this guy was an obsessive stalker. He was never gonna let her go. And he was her boss at work. There was so much wrong with that you don't need to get into. But that was my first thought when I heard the girls had switched rooms with Brian and Brooke. Why did he go in that room first?
Good question.
I have questions. I have questions. Was his intention to kill Brian and then kidnap Brooke with the handcuffs? I don't know.
I don't know either. I know that when it all started going down, who he was going to kill.
Yeah.
A guy half his size.
Right. Right. Brian's like 5'9", $150. And what was
45.
what?
$145.
1 4. And then what was Letendre?
6', 190.
And no drugs or alcohol in his system at autopsy.
If you saw me standing next to Brian, although I'm a little taller and about 25 pounds heavier, that was, you saw how big or not big Brian is.
Mm-hmm. How tall are you?
6'2".
Oh, yeah. The car. Where did Johnathan, we didn't even get to hear about this. Where did Johnathan park his car?
It was up the hill from up above the house. The house is here, and there's a hill that goes up this way. The road goes up, and he parked it up and away above where anybody in the house could see it.
So he was obviously trying to be sneaky, surreptitious. And then there was some chatter that nobody ever found the car keys or something. I don't know if that's true or not.
I asked that on cross-examination, and nobody ever did.
Who did you cross with that?
I believe Trooper O'Brien.
All right, yeah. So tell us about some of the other testimony that we missed, like the most salient points, in your opinion, that we didn't get to see because we saw nothing. Like on the case in chief, on their case in chief.
I mean, their case in chief had to be the 8 minutes, the 8-minute gap, because they acknowledged that everything leading up to that was illegal and felonious, and he shouldn't have done that. And ADA Gagney made a very good point that if he was alive, he would be charged with these things and prosecuted for these things. But where he went in a way that I disagree with, and obviously was the entire subject of the trial. He claims that Brian Camp made his own decision to, he was the cop and he was the he made his own judgment and sentenced him to his own sentence rather than letting the government do what the government has to do.
Yeah, he put him down.
So, and what I tried to do is, the government made this 2 separate instances. One was the first shot, and that ended the first section of this entire case, as I call them, the circumstances. And that the second shot was a whole new sort of circumstances. And that's not how I That's not how I see it, because their medical examiner testified that, level 2 hemorrhagic shock, the symptoms of that are anxiety and pain, and that everybody has a different tolerance for pain, and that anxiety causes people to act in different ways, and admitted that, yeah, he could have gotten up under those circumstances.
Right, and had a second wind with all of that adrenaline pumping and a guy that he really wanted to kill.
So my argument is that it was one event, which is what I said in my closing. And as far as I can see, based on what I believe happened, if you got a high tolerance for pain and anxiety is the only other symptom, and you're getting arrested, because one of the questions that I asked almost every juror was, have you ever been in a fist fight? Because if you've ever been in a fist fight, you understand how exhausting that is. Mike Tyson, I believe, negotiated in this last fight with Jake Paul, negotiated for 2-minute rounds, because he's an old man.
Right.
3 minutes is usually how long they go, and there was no way he was making it out of 2 rounds with 3 minutes. So think about how exhausted Brian must have been, and I'm sure the other gentleman was too, but was getting rest.
Right.
What was going on. And Brian did not want to go in there, and, as Brooke told him, they need to know, meaning the state police went in, and that's where things happened.
Right, because, real concern for the guy who just home invaded and tried to kill everyone in the house. It's mind-numbing to me. The prosecutor, Gagne, also in his opening made it sound like the second shot was Brian standing over Johnathan and shooting him in the head or the face. And we learned in your closing, or actually, I think during Brian's cross, or even during direct, that is not where that shot landed. Explain that a little bit to us.
Correct. From the beginning, there was this, it wasn't even an insinuation. It was said
I was being nice.
it was said that Brian shot him in the back of the head, which made it sound like an execution. And
oh, you mean the media picked that up right away after the incident?
Yeah. And their own medical examiner, no, that's not what happened. It was the top of his head, which was,
so it kind of like grazed the top of his head, because Brian said he was like 10 to 15 feet away when he fired.
No, it didn't graze. That was the shot that went into his head.
Okay.
At the top, not in the back.
But it wasn't execution style, the way they tried to make it sound. And we know how they try to spin things in the media when they have an agenda in Massachusetts, because in the Karen Reed case, they reported right away that there was ring footage of Karen Reed hitting John O'Keefe with her car, and it didn't exist.
No.
So that's, it's public opinion. They want to set the tone for the public opinion right away. Just, in my opinion, justify, prosecuting him for this when he was merely, castle doctrine. I mean, let's go all the way back to the 1700s or earlier. I don't remember law school probably as well as you do, but,
No, I don't
it's a
remember.
thing, the castle doctrine, right? You're allowed to protect your castle.
Yeah, it's something that should be in existence. I mean, it's your castle, and to have somebody come into your house and try to kill you and threaten to kill you, and you have the right to, and again, it's basically the biggest difference is you don't have to retreat. You still have to use force that's reasonable. You still have to use, you don't have to retreat, but you have to use force that's reasonable under the circumstances. So, Brian retreated. I counted 3 times and asked him to get out, or told him to get the F out.
Yeah. And the door was open.
Correct.
And he pointed the gun at him and said, "Get the F out of my house."
The door that he
several
opened.
times.
Yes.
And he wouldn't do it. What are you supposed to do?
I don't know.
So there's no duty to retreat in your own home.
Correct.
Okay. But if you're in public, you have a duty to retreat in Massachusetts?
Not in your house, if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think what he did was reasonable. I'm glad the jury decided that what he did was reasonable.
Yes.
And they were making such a big deal out of that 8 minutes. And even on court TV, I had to mute it. I had to shut it off. I couldn't even listen to it anymore.
I
Oh,
watched
well,
it.
8 minutes, every second of 8 minutes when your life is at stake must seem like a year.
Yep. I
Why
can't
do
even,
you, God,
I can't, like I said in my closing, no one in this building or town or Commonwealth has experienced what Brian Camp experienced. And we're here now criticizing the decisions that he made under all of those circumstances, saying that after 8 minutes it's too long and you should have grabbed your kids and gone outside and you should have done this and you should have done that. Well, state police should have been there sooner than 19 minutes.
amen.
State police should not have said, hey, can you go in and check on him, please?
We saw the interrogation video. We saw that, Brian had just been released from the hospital after being treated for a broken hand, a broken wrist. I'm not sure what was broken. It was his dominant arm, I think, that was broken. And that's why he used his left hand to shoot. And,
Box,
Gagne made a big deal out of that too. Like, oh, it was on your left. Why are you shooting with your left hand?
boxer's fracture to his right hand. He had gouges in his eyes.
Yeah, he tried to gouge his eyes out.
Both eyes had scratches underneath. His left knee was swollen, looked like there was a watermelon in it because he had surgery when he was in high school. That got hurt. He had marks on his neck. He had marks on his back. He had bruises on his shoulder. He was beat up.
He was a mess. And they're insinuating that he should have carried those girls down the stairs. He had a broken, like, how was he even supposed to do that in the condition that he was in and all bloody? And then they take him to the hospital. They put whatever they put on his arm. I don't know if it was casted or if it was a wrap or what but it was huge. I mean, it was from fingertips to elbow.
Yeah.
And his face is still all bloody. Like, did nobody in the hospital even think to kind of like clean him up and see if there was any other place where he was bleeding? It was mind-numbing.
Did you hear why he was in the ambulance for 4 hours still at the house?
Tell us.
So, part of what I believe, was important to know, and thankfully we, you get the humane doctrine, or you get the humane practice instruction about somebody giving a statement to the police. You get to decide whether or not they're in their right mind, and if it was voluntary, and if that kind of stuff. Still, it's a live issue during trial. The reality of that was he had gone through this fight. He shot a guy. I asked the trooper.
Yeah,
that's a traumatic experience, and started going into, when you guys shoot somebody, there's a whole protocol psychologically that you have to go through. He said he wasn't familiar with that, and I was like, okay.
Wait, was he an MSP?
Yeah. I mean, they have to take time off.
Of course. And go to therapy, right?
They've shot a guy. He almost killed you. You got your kids in the house. Your head is smashed into the wall. It's smashed by a rifle barrel or a shotgun barrel. He landed punches on Brian. He shoots him. You got that going on. And then he sits in an ambulance for 4 hours in the driveway. And he was asking for water, and they would not give him water. He said, I have swallowed this guy's blood. May I please have some water? And they wouldn't give him water. And I was wondering why it was that he sat.
Why? Did you ever find out why?
I sure did. Because he didn't want to leave his kids.
I think you touched on that in your closing, but we didn't get to see the cross-examination or the director.
He asked if I have to stay in this ambulance, I want the ambulance to stay here because I want to see my kids. And they wouldn't let him see his kids. And so he finally said, I'm starting to hurt a lot right now. If I'm not going to get to see my kids, then let's go to the hospital.
He's in an ambulance. There was nothing they could do to treat him during those 4 hours?
I don't know.
clean them up. I mean, they've got supplies. You know, we also heard the ambulances were staged outside the house for quite some time, waiting for, and understandably, the scene has to be cleared. They don't know what they're walking into. You can't send first
Right.
responders and ambulances in there without knowing if the scene is cleared. But, you know, the fact that the ambulances could get there in a reasonable period of time, and that nobody at the Chesterfield PD was part-time picking up their text messages like, oh yeah, not my job. Somebody else will get it. Is beyond to me. Tell us if you're comfortable, you know, a little bit more about, we talked a little off air. I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about, you know, Brian's relationship with the girls. Um, you know, we didn't know if they were his biological kids um or not. And I don't know if you want to talk about that. We do think
Sure.
he's the father of the year already. So anything you can tell us can even, you know, reinforce that.
I talked to him today. I had a court appearance in a different court this morning, and I called him up and said, "Hey, as you know, I'm going on, and I can't talk about our private conversations or anything, and unless you say that it's okay." And he's like, "I understand." And I just said, "You know, how would you describe what's going on right now?" And he said, "So grateful, so happy. Please tell all those people, because as I was watching your coverage, whenever it was on the day of the verdict, apparently he was up there talking to some Mo or Bo.
Bo. Yeah, Bo. Our girl Bo's here today, I think.
So he became familiar with you guys before I did, and ripped his shirt off and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But he said that he really appreciates the support that he obviously sensed that he was getting from y'all through Bo, and apparently actually I forgot her name. I'm going to be on her podcast.
Kathy.
Kathy.
Gossip, rumor, and innuendo.
Um, and that he really appreciated that during that very difficult period. And that he and the kids and Brooke are they're well. They're adjusting. They're not there yet. He said it's
Oh,
difficult. He said we're about to do the same thing over again. Christmas coming.
yeah.
And but that, we're working on it. And that Ava, they have two girls. One is his biological daughter with Brooke, the youngest one, and the other one is not, but she might as well be, because tell you a story about the night before jury selection when I went to their house to prep a couple of witnesses. As I was getting tired,
Mm-hmm.
and the trial was about to start the next day. The reality of what I was put on this earth in this case for came bounding down the hall. Came bounding down the hallway as I was sitting there at the kitchen table doing business, both of them, and one jumped on his lap and one jumped on his back and said, "Daddy, let's, whatever." And I was just like, that's what I'm here for. That those two nuggets are what this is all about. And I got to have a cup of coffee, and I got to continue forward and get ready for this thing, because one person tried to take away their father, and another entity was trying to do it tomorrow. And,
Yeah.
I didn't want that to happen.
And that's a lot of pressure on an attorney when you know your client is innocent, right? And like, look, it's emotional for me. And I wasn't as personally invested in this as you were. Like, the pressure is enormous. And
yeah, the criticism, it's interesting. Everybody, look, the court TV guys, who knows when they last tried a case at all, or this type of case. And I know that they have a job to do, and so they say what they say. I don't, it's nobody's business what It's not my business what you think of me is my favorite quote. It's not my business what you think of me,
Right.
which is hard sometimes
I'm too old to care at this
because I'm
point. I'm like,
human.
I'm just too old to care.
But
When people hate you, you know you're doing something right because
correct.
you're making a difference and they want to shut you up and they
Yeah,
want you to go away. And that's
right,
when they get the loudest, is when you know you're on the right track.
right. So, um, you know, after it was over, uh, there were a couple of attorneys who basically said, you know, those were great facts for the defense anyway. Like it wasn't a big deal. And all I said was, those are the hardest ones to win, man. Like if I'm supposed to win this,
Mhm.
like it's not, whatever. I didn't say anything, but it's I'm lucky to have Brian Camp as a client. Um, I'm lucky to have met Brooke and the two girls and the witnesses that were supportive of him. Uh, I'm very lucky to have stumbled upon a former Trinity College attorney who covered this, and watching you get um, emotional and arms up in the air when a not guilty verdict came down was I cried. As you see, I cry pretty easily. Big tough criminal defense lawyer, forget it. I
I
cry.
mean, that's why you do what you do, truth and justice and vulnerability, and you can relate to your clients. And I'm sure that you could relate to Brian, even more so because he's like, could be your kid.
Yep.
And yet at 22 years old, he's already a father of two, I mean, he's a baby with babies and doing all the right things and stuff. I mean, this kid could teach men twice his age how to be a dad.
Well, that's the amazing part. He was 22 and like pretty squared away. Like he owned, the circumstances under which he inherited or his father's house was passed down to him were awful. He would rather not own the house
Right.
and have his father with him, but he, it's amazing. He's an amazing guy in his decision making and how hard he works and how much he loves those kids and how much he loves Brooke. And to see, I don't know if you saw the picture in the Gazette, which was nice. They
No.
actually, there's a front page story finally, not guilty.
Right.
There's a picture of Brooke and I forget who the other person is, and Brian, all three of them hugging like this. Um, and I wanted to go throw up, but I didn't.
Um,
Go ahead.
his mom must be amazing too, because, a lot of times you got to look at the parents and you got to say, this is a kid who has amazing parents because they brought him up in a way that he is getting up on that stand. He's so genuine. He seems so kind. He's so responsible, that he must just come from an amazing family.
Mom
That's a
is
testament to his mom.
Mom is amazing. Mom vetted me. I went to her house. She vetted me, and with some doubts probably because it's amazing to me these days that you're hiring somebody on Google. That oftentimes it's sight unseen. Oftentimes it's got to happen quickly. You're getting a rain tomorrow.
Right.
Often, and that didn't happen in this case, but she vetted me with a mother's eyes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Casting doubt on, not sure who is this guy. He's half Polish. God, he's from Chicopee. I don't know, this whole thing. And then let him be the client because she's not the client.
Right.
I don't care if you gave me any money. You're not the
That's
client.
right.
You're
Doesn't
not the
matter who pays.
And so she had to have faith in her son to make decisions based on what I'm telling him and faith in me. And And I I'm glad that they did.
We noticed, or I noticed, that this case is not getting a lot of coverage. It was not getting a lot of mainstream media coverage. I was outraged by that because if I lived in Massachusetts, this was what I would want to see as my front page news. And I felt like, in my opinion, they tried to shadow ban this in a lot of ways. Do you have any opinions about why this wasn't picked up by media? There must have been a camera in the courtroom. I don't know who the pool photographer was, but they did, dribble out bits and pieces to us. Thoughts?
Yeah, first because I'm not the smartest guy in every room that I'm in, and I've only seen the word shadow ban for the first time reading your stuff. I guess I could guess what it means, but can you
It's
define
kind of
that?
like it's kind of like they just try and hide it. Like if you Google it, it's not going to come up. You know,
I did find it very strange because I was getting calls from A&E and Discovery and all of these places to make it a whatever
documentary.
documentary.
Hmm.
And there was one that was uh, it's the one that focuses only on the defense, which I found interesting. I watched a couple of I think it's Accused, Guilty, or Innocent is the name of it. I think that's A&E. But yeah, there's nothing uh,
Even the local papers, like the local Boston channels, did not even announce the verdict until after 10 p.m.
yeah. And some of the filings that I filed, um, required a couple of pages of the facts of the case, and I thought, I don't know if some reporter is interested and they see this stuff, and there was nothing. So, and it's the first time that that's happened in a high profile case that I've been involved in. Um, so yeah, I don't know.
Chuck says the mainstream media doesn't like the Second Amendment. That's the way a lot of people feel, and that's the way a lot of Massachusetts residents feel, apparently, with regard to this case. And we're just so glad that we could be there to rejoice in this not guilty, because we, as trial watchers, as Massachusetts coverage people, needed a win. We have seen so many injustices lately of people being convicted. We saw a 14-year-old girl in Mississippi be convicted as an adult. She killed her mother. She was clearly mentally ill. She had issues with medication that had been switched around. And there's a new law in Mississippi, life without possibility of parole ever. And they're sending her away we have seen some real travesties. And this was collectively restored our faith in the justice system just a little bit.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that for us.
Yeah, I mean, I had a small part in it. A couple of trials ago, because of what's been going on in our country, and the slamming of our justice system, which is not perfect, but it's the best that there is. I believe that with the right, with a good judge and with a good prosecutor and with a good defense attorney and I mean everything down to court officers and such, that the system is good and not just because of the verdict in this case, but Judge Manitsis is relatively new. It's the first time I've been in front of him in a trial. I've done a couple of pleas in front of him. I've never tried a case against ADA Gagney. I've wanted to for a long time. So that was the first for me. He is very skilled and very smart. And the clerk is amazing. And so I just think that if you've got all that together, if you got the right set of players, that the right thing is going to happen.
Did you ever, I mean, thank you, jury. Thank you, jury. Jurors, you were amazing. When the judge said, Madam Foreman, have you reached have you reached a verdict? And usually the Madam foreperson will say, yes, we have. But when he said, have you reached a verdict? And she just said, not guilty. It was like she was so ready to say that. It was
it was such a relief to get it out that early, because the worst part for me, with all the trials that I've done, is always, and I always say, when people ask me, how do you sleep at night representing somebody did it? And, whenever somebody gets on their high horse and says that, and then I may have heard you say it or somebody else.
mm-hmm.
Everybody hates a criminal defense lawyer till their kid needs one.
Till you need one, yeah.
And my answer always is, imagine defending someone didn't do it.
That's it. It's harder.
That's the harder one.
More pressure.
And this was one that is just, I just don't think that, I think that it, and I forgot where I was going with that, but
that happens to me all the time. We can segue pretty easily into this. Hanky Panky's Widow Wanky says, happy Thanksgiving. I'm so excited you're doing this live. You're the best legal analyst on YouTube. Oh, thank you. I think maybe Tom and I are going to start our own court TV station. And then she says, fangirling Brian Camp's attorney. So there you go. You have one fangirl in the chat at least.
Excellent.
Susie Costello, thank you so much for your 50. You're always so kind and generous to this channel, and I love you with all of my heart. Just ducking around, says Brian, show in Massachusetts how justice is done. I was right. Michelle, one of my mods, had dropped the GoFundMe link in the chat. The Amazon wish list for us to give the girls an amazing Christmas this year is pinned to the top of the chat. Both links are also in the show notes or the video description below if anybody is looking for them. And Hanky Panky also says Brian Camp's attorney did look like Drew Carey. He still does a little bit. Still does in a very good way. It's a compliment.
Price is right.
I was just watching before we went on. I'm like, he kind of does, like the skinny Drew Carey. Cherie says, thank you again, Bo. Thanks, Bo, if you're here. Max and Milo, her cats are fangirling as well. Hanky Pankies. D comes in with a 10. Attorney Kokonowski. It is Kokonowski, right? I'm pronouncing it right?
That's correct. Nickname's Coco.
Coco, your closing argument was golden. Had me on the edge of my seat and nodding in agreement the whole time. Start to finish was beautifully delivered. Well done.
Thank you.
I remember the audio wasn't that great, so
of course not.
And watch it. Yeah, of course not. Like I said, shadow banning. Wow, Tom is amazing. That is a great story. Hanky Panky's always in here with the donations. Thank you, Janelle, for your super sticker. And Hanky Panky also says, I grew up in Revere and understand. I'm an RN and I've had a great career, values instilled. God bless. God bless you too, sweetheart. Ricky, howdy to y'all. Been great being with you. Thanks, Ricky, for hanging in here for 10 months with me. And D says, Attorney Kokonowski, how thorough of an investigation search was done on the house that night? The handcuffs found by the coroner seemed like an incomplete investigation.
Well,
remember also that Tom still does currently practice in Massachusetts, and so therefore, as such, he cannot be badmouthing the MSP. But anything that you feel comfortable sharing. D, I will tell you that I think the investigation sucks. Okay, you just leave. There's a big giant blood stain on the couch, and the jacket is draped right over it, and nobody finds it. But I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, I don't think it was very good at all to have charged my client with manslaughter. And the trooper, when I asked him on cross-examination, he didn't think it might be important to look at this jacket right below a blood stain. And he said, no, I didn't think it had any investigative or, very much investigative value. So,
yeah, we also saw the first trooper who came to the scene when there was I guess it was his body cam inside of his vehicle when he took possession of the gun. And he didn't have gloves on. I mean, how big a deal is that? Is that a big deal, or is that like he doesn't need to put gloves on when he's handling the murder weapon? I mean, I don't know. Seems sus to me.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately in this case, it probably was not particularly important, but you would think, yeah,
because he admitted shooting him, but yet we also don't know if the perp. Johnathan tried to grab the gun away from him. Maybe his prints were on it too. Could have helped you. Just saying. Hanky panky, I'm an RN, and I think I missed my calling. I would have been a wonderful defense attorney. I'm too old now. You're never too old. You're never too old to dream a new dream.
Law school's only 3 years, man. Get going. Take
That's
the
right.
LSAT.
Do it. So it was always the older students in law school too that always ruined the curve. Those of us that went straight to law school, we were just like, I was in Boulder. I wanted to stay there another 3 years, and like, I go to law
Yeah.
school, that'll keep me out here for another 3 years. And then it was always the older students, and they always ruined the curve because they took it took it way more seriously.
They always read the book, their homework, and they have the answer when the professor asks, and all of that stupid
They got
stuff.
their 400 pages a night done, all that reading.
Right. I was 2 nights before the exam trying to chew down 10,000 pages worth of con law or property.
I had a professor who would go down the row in order. He would pick a row. And so I would know if I was fourth in the line, I'd have to quickly look to the fourth case and read it because I knew that was going to be mine. And I always got it done.
That's good.
Cat Artist, thanks for the 5. Like being in the middle of an earthquake, you cannot follow all the tips in the life and death circumstances. You just react. 100%.
That's it.
Dewey, thanks, Dewey, for the 10. Love to Brian and Brooke, to Tom, to Mel, the cupcakes, and George Clooney. Oh, thanks, Dewey. Tell Tom you can never have too many cupcakes. Thanks, Dewey. On top, thank you for your super sticker. GPC, ask him about the attorney pointing the gun at Brian. We noticed that in his closing, Gagney was waving that gun around, and it looked to us, I mean, granted, we could only see Gagney because Brian was out of the shot. He was out of frame, but it looked like he was waving it around and pointing it at him while Brian's on the stand. And I'm like this kid hasn't had enough trauma. And you could see, if you ever go back and watch that part of his testimony, you could see his demeanor. I'm sure you were focusing on what you were doing and your notes or whatever, but
I didn't see that.
Yeah, we were outraged by that. Southern Mom, thanks for the 5. Thank you so much for covering this. Great work, Tom. So thankful that the jury got it right. Again, thoughts on the prosecutor pointing the gun during cross.
I'm going to have to go back and see if I can see that.
It was very, very poor gun safety as far as I'm concerned. So grateful Brian had you in his corner. We love both of you, says LA. Thank you. Well done. Justice prevailed. Tom, I think that's supposed to say Tom.
Yeah.
Hi, Goodmans. You're an amazing man, Tom. Happy holidays. So happy for you and Brian Camp.
Thanks.
The Goodmans are in here always trying to outdo each other with their super chat donations. I think Mama She said, nope, I'm totally fangirl, Tom. And she threw in a 10 just to tell you that. Thank you, Mama She. Ask about the state's attorney handling the gun. Yeah, he's going to have to go back and watch that. It was crazy making. He had it and he was waving it around. At one point, it looked like he pointed it at the jury. And I'm like, why is the judge not? One thing that I wanted to point out to you that I noticed is it was one point during cross of Brian. Then when Gagney said something, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was about, well, you could have went upstairs and got the girls and just brought them down. And judge said, can I see you both at sidebar right now? Like he put the kibosh on that. Like he put a stop to it. He stepped in. And you can't tell us what happened at sidebar, but that's what I was thinking. I'm like, the judge is not going to let this go. He's not letting Gagney go there.
Yeah, one of the things that was going on with that kind of questioning is you can't, because of the Castle doctrine, and you don't have the duty to retreat. You can't cross-examine somebody about why didn't you retreat in your own house. That's what that was all about. It
sounded to me like he was like, when he was saying like, why didn't you go get the girls and take them out and get the keys to the car? And I'd have to go back and look at it. But yeah, if there's no duty to retreat, you can't make that argument. Like, yeah, you should have left.
But that argument too, without the Castle doctrine is, I mean, anybody who has kids is going to say, what are you talking about? Like to get them, it was not, I don't think that was a strong argument or question.
And that's why, as I point out to the viewers all the time, jury selection is so important in every case, but especially in a case like this. Yeah, what were some of the things you had pointed to asking them if they'd ever been in a fight? What were some of your other things that were really important to you during jury selection?
Have you ever fired a gun? Have you ever had someone break into your house? Have you ever gotten into a fist fight? Have you ever gotten into any kind of extended physical altercation with someone? Have you ever been the victim of any type of crime? Do you know anybody who has been shot? Do you, Brian, we expect the evidence to show that the defendant will be described as a hunter. Will that be difficult for you to remain fair and impartial with? And that there were a number of firearms owned by, a lot of gun stuff to make sure that people knew what was coming. I asked, some of the photographs that are going to be shown to you are extremely graphic in nature, bloody specifically. Is that going to make it difficult for you to remain fair and impartial? Part of the standard questions is, do you have any law enforcement in your family? Would you believe a police officer over a civilian simply because they are a police officer? That one was asked on every single one.
Well, was there anything in any of the law enforcement testimony that was a little bit sketch to you? Because we didn't get to see it, of course. We saw like a sentence in a Mass Live website that had so many pop-ups, like it was giving me a headache to even try and read it. Why would you ask that question?
Which question?
Why would you believe a law enforcement officer over the defendant?
Because there are going to be cops testifying about whatever.
Right. Was there anything in your mind that was inconsistent with the truth? Because we've seen that in Karen Reed. So we are,
Well, sure. That the jacket below a giant bloodstain is not relevant.
Mm-hmm. And the knife is decorative.
That the knife is decorative. That there may be a protocol when we shoot people, but I don't know what it is.
Are you entitled to depositions prior to? Some states can. So you didn't know what these guys were going to say on the stand, right? So you did, when you asked him that protocol question. I mean, you must have been shocked when he said, "No, I have no idea what that protocol is."
No, I'm really not shocked. I assume that there's going to be honest answers and then there's going to be sketchy answers, and so I wasn't. He admitted because he said it to Brian in the statement. You've been through a traumatic experience. Your memory is not going to be. As time goes by, you're going to remember things more and more. And just the act of shooting someone, I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine getting to a point where that is like, you have tried everything. Literally tried everything. Begging, threatening, pointing guns, stepping aside, smashing him over the head with a bong. And by the way, please do. Want to put in here with that.
Legal.
Huh?
It's legal in Massachusetts.
Well, that attempt was shut down by the judge as well. But it is my opinion that there would be a different outcome in this case if Brooke had not hit him, because it didn't stop him from doing what he was doing, but as Brian testified, it caused him to maybe loosen his grip for a split second, which allowed him to get out from the choke.
Right.
And so I think that is the first very pivotal action that helped save Brian's and everybody else's life when she hit him.
And Brian was able to lure him away from the girls.
Correct.
I mean, to be able to think, because you know how these things happen so quickly and your mind is a jumble, you're in a fog, and to be able to have that thought to divert him, that was his first thought, was to get this guy away from his children. And all the props and praise to him, and we hope he's doing well. And that
Yes, he wanted you guys to know that he and Brooke are, and I saw the title of his GoFundMe. I forget exactly what it is, but it nails it right on the head, sort of reconstructing their lives.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, finally, after almost 2 years to the day, this was like 2 days after Christmas.
You're almost killed, and then you have to go on trial.
Yeah, Brooke was so brave. God bless you, Brooke. God bless you, Brooke. quick thinking in the moment. I mean, it's hard. That's a really, some people freeze, you know, some people freeze and they don't know what to do. I can't even imagine. Yes, the GoFundMe is pinned in the show notes, like I said. Sue says, thanks so much, Tom. You got justice for an innocent man. Polacks are great.
Go.
Hey, D&E, Pizza Duck. Jen says, I would love to see Tom comment on more cases here. You're welcome anytime you want to come on with me.
Sure.
If you'd like to, have a little side gig. It's fun.
Sure.
We have a lot of fun here. What was the demographics of the jury? Carol wants to know. How many men? How many women?
I believe it's a good question. Ultimately, because I think there are 2 women that were chosen as alternates. I think 7-5 men.
Interesting.
I think
Older, younger.
they were older. The the 4-person who I love for blurting it out sooner than she was
great.
supposed to. She was younger. She looked younger, but there were older. There were gun owners. There were a couple of hunters. There were. It was. You're right. That case really had to pay attention very closely to jury selection, and I work hard on all of my jury questions and strategies and picking the right jury, but this one worked very well. It took a little bit of a different tack than I normally do, and I'm glad that I did.
Did you ever consider a bench trial?
Yes.
Is that, in a case like this, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, it's so hard because you never know what a jury's going to do. You know?
For about a minute, and you have to have the conversation with the client.
Right.
But ultimately, make them prove it beyond a reasonable doubt to 12 people.
Did you have a huge team behind you, or is it just you?
I have an incredible team. I have Sydney, what time is it?
Let's shout out to the team.
Sydney, who left 3 minutes ago in the office. She goes to school for paralegal. Nancy, who worked very hard for a significant period of time. And I have 2 paralegals, one who lives in Worcester, about an hour and a half from where I am. I'm on Cape Cod right now. And a guy who I've hired sight unseen who lives in Connecticut, who is a much better researcher and writer than I. That's what business 101 is you hire your weakness. Hire your weakness. And that is,
you can't do it all.
That is my weakness.
Me, or just I have people for that, to do my writing. Like that's not my, negotiation is my strong point.
Yeah.
The trial stuff, but not. You hire people because you can't do it all. Why did they wait 6 months to charge? Elizabeth wants to know.
I think they had a hard time putting it together.
Yeah. Sandy, thank you. His reaction of not guilty. I think we covered that one.
What?
Your reaction, or of the 4 persons not guilty, or Brian's?
Yeah, my reaction was and I didn't finish that was the thought that I lost the last time. I've stopped looking at juries, trying to read the tea leaves on their face, because I've never been right looking at them. What I find is if there's an audio portion to a jury coming back into a courtroom. And so what I do is I close my eyes as I'm praying. I close my eyes and I listen for what's going on as they're coming in. And if they're silent, that's usually a problem for us, because it is not, most juries don't take great pleasure in convicting someone. So there's no, but if they're coming in and there's a little bit of, I don't know, chatter or something like that, I tend to think that it's going to turn out okay. And that was clear to me. In this, there was a sound. I can't describe it, as they were coming in. Nobody was saying anything. Nobody was saying anything, But as I was closing my eyes and saying my prayers, I just got this, it sounds different. And then whenever she blurted it out, I was like, I knew it. That was awesome. That's usually another 33 seconds of torture for me, and I'm sure my client. As one
Yep.
client, as one client told me when I talk about representing somebody didn't do it, like Brian. There was another one that I had who I've represented a bunch of times, and it just so happens this time he didn't do it. And as the jury was coming in, he turned to me and said, "Well, my life is going to change one way or the other in about 35 seconds." And he's right.
Wow.
The jury coming back is always the, you know,
Yeah. It's so interesting that you close your eyes and listen. That's really interesting. I've never heard anybody do that before. That's intuitive.
hmm.
The 4 hours seemed like every hour that went by, we were getting like, we're like, 4 hours. Why is it taking so long? 4 hours. And it was, I mean, I can't imagine what it was like for you guys sitting there because, you know, we knew they closed the courthouse at 4:30. So we're like, all right, we know where they're coming back today. We know jurors like to get their free lunch. They like to eat lunch.
Yep.
And so, I don't know. You know, it's like that in every case, right? When you're waiting for a jury to come back, it's an incredibly anxious time.
I got my steps in during the 4 hours. I walked up and down Main Street for about 3 of the 4 hours and checked in every once in a while. They had my cell phone, so I was heading down Main Street when I got a text from the clerk, got a verdict, and I just went over.
Yeah, they tell you got to stay like 10 minutes away or something.
Yep.
Hazelnut, thanks. Oh, well, look at me. I got to this question before I could even read your super chat. Was a bench trial ever consideration in this case? We just talked about that. Did you speak to any of the jurors after their verdicts?
Nope.
No?
We can't approach them.
Oh, really?
No.
That's interesting. In New York, we can. If they want to talk to us and they're in the hallway, we can talk to them. That's very interesting. Defense attorneys have a special place in my heart. They're the only ones who will have our back, says Rossler's mom. Tom, you did an outstanding job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rossler's mom for the 5. Snarky wants to know if you like pierogies.
Very much. Cabbage for dinner and blueberry for like a dessert kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah.
I was in Madison Square Garden last week, and they had a whole pierogi like stand in Madison Square Garden. I couldn't believe it. PJM, thanks for the 10 joining late, but please tell this attorney he did an excellent job and has helped restore some of my faith in the justice system. Thank you so much. Sam wanted to know if Brian has a civil suit. Well, I don't know if you know that or can speak to it or
Neither.
Can you ask his thoughts on the Karen retrial? I knew we were going to get here at some point. If there's anything that you know about it or want to say or your thoughts on it, I know that they're going to want you to come back and talk with me about that another time, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll have more time now with this case passed because basically I've been preparing for this case for about 1.5 years.
Wow.
So, but I've dipped into see some sort of coverage of that, and just it's crazy. It's embarrassing. It's, you know, the texting and the calls and demeaning everything from misogynistic to whatever her handicap or injury is or whatever
Mhm.
it's got.
Yeah.
It's just do your job, man. Just do your job. And you know, I've not watched close enough to be able to comment on the strength of the evidence on certain things. It certainly doesn't feel like a first-degree murder to me, which I believe is she charged.
She's charged with second
Degree.
Yeah. And then there was a manslaughter with lesser included, and then there was a leaving the scene. But what was interesting about this too is that the judge, before she declared the mistrial, you know, she had sent them back with the Tui Rodriguez charge. Like the second time they sent a note out and said they were deadlocked. They came back, said they were deadlocked again. She declared a mistrial without consulting with either side. And the day after the verdict, jurors started reaching out to the defense and saying, we acquitted.
They acquitted her of the murder.
Of murder and charges 1 and 3. And it's up in the SJC right now. There's no decision yet. They're saying it's a double jeopardy issue. And, there's no harm in calling the jury back just to ask them if they acquitted. We don't have to, delve into their deliberative process and what they said in there. But the judge clearly said, do not come back. Do not fill out any of these verdict slips until you've reached a unanimity on all 3 charges, all 3 counts. So there's a lot of craziness going on there. I don't know what the SJC is going to do. My jam is not appellate work, but
yeah, I don't either. I had arguments for and against, but it sure feels like double jeopardy.
right? I mean, like Massachusetts and the Constitution lately, based on the stuff I've been covering, and I could say this because I'm in New York, doesn't seem to be, like there's no reporter privilege in the state of Massachusetts. You are one of a handful of states that do not recognize any sort of reporter privilege.
Correct.
That's shocking. Courtney says, Tom, you're the real OG. Amazing job prepping, Brian, and thank you for restoring my faith in the justice system. I think that we can collectively thank you, all of us.
Small part, but you're welcome, and thank you.
I don't want to keep you all day here, so before we wrap, if you have any final thoughts,
I got nothing to do. I'm finally not doing work for like the next 3 days. So.
Oh, that's nice. You have the whole long weekend off.
Yep, I had a drunk driving plea this morning, and
yeah, I was wondering why the courts were open today. Remember back in the old days, we used to everybody used to close the day after Thanksgiving, but I guess if they're holding people for an arraignment or something, they have to have some sort of thing in some sort of court in the morning.
And then I was thinking of going to work out, but nah, it's too cold out.
It's like almost dark already. What time is it?
Wait,
let me see how my Buffs are doing. I was watching my football, and then I don't know what happened with that game. Is it still on? All right, I'll have to check real quick. Thoughts, concerns, anyone in the chat? Yeah, I am. After this, I'm teleporting all of you over to the 4:00 Karen Reed stream. We're gonna do that. There's some. Oh, look, Colorado beat Oklahoma State 52-0. So there's that. If a couple of other teams lose today, we will go to the Big 12 championship, which is very exciting. I think. I don't know.
Deion Sanders, Colorado.
Yes, love him. And it was senior day, so his son Shador is graduating. It's his last game as a Buff. And
I was a Bantam. You were a Bantam for a minute.
Yeah, I remember that guy dressed up in that little rooster costume. I'm thinking
you almost said it.
You were. I know I did. You weren't that guy, right? You didn't ever dress up as that mascot. And I was thinking, and at the football, the bleachers were from my kids' middle school. That's how many people could go to this game. It was hilarious. And then I went to a big school with a huge football stadium, and it was, I was a deadhead, a hippie chick, so it was more my speed, and that's where I wound up. But I'm sorry I didn't know you in college, but at least I get to know you now. So there's that. You'll be my new best friend and, co-host.
Here we are.
Can we bring Tom to the next stream, please? I'm just going to be reading. It's going to be boring. So that's that. Thank you, Mama She. Thanks, Mama She. All right. So there's that, but come in the chat if you want to, but let's plan something for future.
Okay.
You want to come back?
Absolutely.
That'd be great. I would love to have you.
Yeah. This is a cool place.
Thank you. We have a lot of fun here. All right, hang out for a second as soon as I say goodbye. Daniel Penny, I don't know if you know anything about the Daniel Penny case. He's a Marine on trial in New York City.
No, I've heard only from you guys.
Yeah,
I get it though.
Thanks, Elf. Yeah, I got to jump because I got to look at some documents on Karen Reed before we pick up that stream next. As I always say, everyone, just, be cool, be kind, be classy. It's not hard, really. It's so not hard. Brian, the Brian Camp links for the GoFundMe and the Amazon wish list are in the show notes. Please, if you would like to help in any way, I'm sure that every dollar will help the family. Right, Tom?
Right.
And there's nothing we want more than for those little girls to have an amazing Christmas.
Yes.
And for them to start rebuilding their family It's going to take some, and their lives. I mean, they've been like living this nightmare for almost 2 years exactly.
Yep.
And whatever we can do to help, we're here for them. And I hope you will relay that to them.
I will.
Thank you so much for your fierce advocacy, for your vulnerability, for your kind, caring nature. And everyone needs a defense attorney like you. I will link your website in the show notes in case anyone wants to find you. Is that the best way to find you?
Absolutely.
For when they need criminal representation? Because
There's
everyone needs.
There's 3 websites.
Send me the one you want me to link.
Okay.
And I'll use the one that you want me to link. Or if you want me to put your office number in there, whatever you want me to put in there, I'll put in there for you.
I'll send you a link.
All right. Hang on one second for the green room. Good night, everyone. I'm going to teleport you over to the 4 o'clock stream. Safe travels. Buckle up, buttercups. I'll see you there.